Okay, let's open a new document. We'll go into the File menu to open. And in the Lesson 9 folder, let's choose L9 Start.ai and click Open. And then go into the View menu to Fit All and Window. So we see there's just one artboard. Let's go into the Window menu to Workspace and choose Like in Design. And we'll go up here to the Layers panel and just notice that we have a bunch of layers already made for us, but there's just one visible, the background layer. So with our black arrow, our select tool, let's go ahead and click on the rounded rectangle, and we see that it's been filled with a brown color and stroked with a red color, but we're going to fill it with a gradient, a smooth transition from one color to another color. So I'm going to hit the letter X until I make sure that the fill indicator is to the front. And now I'm going to come over here and go to the gradient panel, and notice that there are two little arrows to the left of the word gradient, and I'm going to click on those and close the panel all the way, but then click on them again and reveal the entire panel. So now with an object selected, we can activate the gradient by clicking in this box here, the gradient fill box. We'll just click in that, and now we see that our object is filled with the default gradient. It's a linear gradient, and it's going from black to white. So now below the slider here in the gradient panel, we have a color stop on the left and a color stop on the right. And the first one is the white color, and the second one is the black color. But we're going to change those colors now. So double click on the color stop on the left, and we get another panel. And inside this panel, we have two buttons. The first one is the color button, and the second one is the swatches button. And if we choose the color button, we also have a panel menu. And if we click on that, we see here that we can change the color mode from one color mode to another. But we're going to leave it grayscale for right now, and we're just going to go to the second button and choose one of these color swatches, and that'll become our new color for the color stop. So I'm going to click on the third color in the first row, which is a light brown, in order to apply that color swatch to that color stop in the gradient panel. And if I go back to this button here and click on swatches, go back to this button here and click on color, I can see that light brown color is shown, and if I wanted to, I could make a tint, in other words, a lighter shade of that color, but we're just going to leave it like that. And so I'm going to hit the escape key to close out of that panel, and now looking in the gradient panel, I see the first color stop is brown. And I'm just going to double click on the second color stop, and again we're going to go to look at swatches and look at colors, but we're going to actually make a color this time, and we're going to make a CMYK color. So we're going to go to the swatches panel menu right here within the gradient panel, and we're going to change to CMYK color mode. So now when we do that, we've got the CMYK sliders, and we can just go ahead and input our own color. I'm going to type in 45% cyan, and tab down and type in 62 magenta, and then 82 yellow, and finally 44 black. And so now we've created our own color for the second color stop, and I'm just going to hit the escape key in order to get out of that panel, and now we have a light brown for the first color stop and a dark brown for the second color stop. Now if I click up here to the gradient fill box here on this arrow, I can see that we have these presets already made for us. In fact, the first one, the linear gradient, was the preset that we used to fill the object to begin with. But what we're going to do now is go down here to the bottom of these types, and we see a little symbol, and we click on that icon there, and in order to save those swatches, in order to save that gradient color swatch to our swatches panel. So I'm going to click on that, and now if I look in the swatches panel up here, I see that new gradient swatch has been added to the swatches panel. And I'm going to rename it by double clicking on the gradient swatch. And over here in swatch options, I'm going to call it background gradient, and click OK. And now in the swatches panel here, I see that that gradient swatch has been renamed. And we can view swatches in a way that just allows us to see the gradients. So down here where it says Show Swatch Kinds menu, I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to choose Show Gradient Swatches. And now if we look in our swatches panel, we see just the gradient swatches, including those presets that we looked at earlier, and also the background gradient that we just made. So now I'm going to choose the gradient tool. I'm going to come over here to the tools panel and click on the gradient tool. And when I do that, I see an indicator, a horizontal indicator, moving across the gradient. And this gradient bar can be moved and changed. Notice how it's got a larger circle at one end. And the larger circle at one end of the gradient bar shows the beginning color, which we know is the light brown. Now I can click on that beginning color in the gradient bar here, and I can move it around. And as I move it around, the gradient inside the shape changes. I can also just click at the top of the object here and drag down, and I get a new gradient bar, and if I add the Shift key, I keep it moving down in a vertical movement. So now I've got the gradient going from the top of the shape toward the bottom. So in fact, we can click and drag and go in any direction to change the way the gradient inside the shape looks. But I'm just going to click at the top, drag down while holding the Shift key down, and now we have a gradient that goes from light brown at the top to dark brown at the bottom. Now if I approach the gradient bar at the bottom, as I get near the bottom, I get a little rotate symbol as I near the bottom of the gradient bar, and I can click on that and rotate the gradient bar that way. So there we can rotate the existing gradient bar. We just roll over near the bottom of the gradient bar until we see that little rotate symbol. But I'm going to go ahead once again and click in the top of the shape, drag down, hold the Shift key down, and just make a vertical gradient that goes from light brown at the top to dark brown at the bottom. Now I could have also gone over here to the gradient panel, and you see we have the degrees shown right here. So we have a minus 90 degree angle shown. And we have a slider here in the angle, so we can go ahead and change the angle here using this slider in the gradient panel. But I'm just going to click on that little icon for the angle, and I'm just going to type in minus 90 degrees and hit the tab key, and now we're back to that vertical gradient inside that shape. Now I'm going to go ahead and lock the shape that we have selected, the object that we have selected, by going under the object menu to lock and choose selection. Now that rounded corner rectangle shape is locked, and we won't accidentally select it.